The park was alive with the hum of spring, a symphony of rustling leaves, chirping birds, and the occasional bark of a dog. Beneath the canopy of freshly budded trees, Donald Trump strolled along a cobblestone path flanked by the faint aroma of blooming magnolias. His crisp navy suit and signature red tie stood in stark contrast to the casual joggers and young families enjoying the day. Secret Service agents hovered in the periphery, blending into the scene but ever vigilant. Meanwhile, Michael Carter sat on a sun-dappled bench nearby, his two young children darting around him. Their laughter echoed through the park, a stark contrast to Michael's grim expression. Deep lines creased his weathered face, and his rough hands betrayed years of grueling labor. His clothes, clean but visibly worn, spoke of someone who prioritized his kids' needs over his own. At his feet, a frayed backpack and a half-eaten sandwich rested, the meager remains of his lunch. Michael noticed Trump almost immediately. It was hard not to. The man had an aura that commanded attention, but for Michael, that presence ignited a spark of anger rather than awe. Watching Trump walk leisurely, with no visible care in the world, felt like a slap in the face. Unable to suppress his frustration, Michael called out, his voice cutting through the hum of the park. "Hey, Trump, enjoying your perfect morning while the rest of us scrape by?" The sudden outburst drew the attention of passers-by. Trump stopped mid-step, his head turning toward the source of the voice. His blue eyes locked onto Michael, narrowing slightly. With a subtle gesture to his security, he signaled them to stand back and approach the man on the bench. His polished shoes crunched against the gravel path as he stopped just short of Michael, his stance commanding but non-confrontational. "Got something on your mind?" Trump asked, his tone sharp yet oddly inviting. Michael stood up, his broad shoulders stiff. He was slightly taller than Trump, and his posture carried the weight of years of struggle. "You bet I do," Michael spat. "You walk around like a king, talking about how great everything is. But it's not great for us. For the real people, it's hell." Trump raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth twitching in what could have been annoyance or amusement. "Hell, huh? I'd like to hear what you mean by that," he said, crossing his arms. Michael's voice rose, his words laced with bitterness. "Hell is working 60 hours a week and still wondering if you can pay the rent. It's watching your kids grow up knowing they'll inherit the same broken system because people like you care more about tax breaks for billionaires than fixing what's broken." Trump didn't flinch, but his expression hardened. "Let me tell you something, pal," he shot back. "I've created jobs, thousands of them. I've given people opportunities they wouldn't have had otherwise. What have you done besides complain?" Michael's laugh was cold and sharp. "Created jobs? Spare me. You created crumbs. You think working 2 part-time minimum wage gigs because there are no full-time options is a blessing? That's not opportunity. That's a damn trap." The intensity of the exchange had drawn a crowd. Some were filming with their phones, while others watched with a mix of shock and fascination. Michael took a step closer, his voice lowering but no less cutting. "You sit in your towers, eating steak dinners, playing golf, while the rest of us fight to keep the lights on. You've never had to tell your kid, 'Sorry, not tonight. We can't afford it.' You don't know what it's like to be humiliated by a damn grocery bill." Trump's jaw tightened, but he held his ground. "You think I don't understand struggle? I built my empire from the ground up. You think that was handed to me?" Michael scoffed, shaking his head. "Ground up? Give me a break. Small loan of $1 million. That's not struggle, that's privilege. You've never had to dig yourself out of a hole because you've never been in one." Trump opened his mouth to retort, but Michael wasn't done. "And you want to know what's worse? It's not just you. It's all of them. Every politician, every CEO. You make your speeches, you run your ads, and then you turn your backs on us. All of you are the same." For a moment, Trump seemed taken aback by the rawness of Michael's words. His gaze softened, his arms uncrossing as he took a small step back. "Look," Trump began, his tone less combative, "I get that you're angry, but do you think it's easy to fix an entire country? Do you have any idea how complicated this is? You think I can snap my fingers and make everything better?" Michael's face face flushed with frustration, but he hesitated. Trump's tone had shifted, and it was hard to ignore the faint sincerity behind his words. Maybe it's not easy, Michael admitted grudgingly, but when you're the guy in charge, you don't get to make excuses. You figure it out. That's what leaders are supposed to do. Trump nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. You're right about one thing, Michael. I don't know your life. I've never been where you are, but I do know this. Change doesn't happen overnight, and maybe I haven't done enough, but I'm listening now. Michael blinked, caught off guard by the sudden vulnerability in Trump's voice. Before he could respond, Trump gestured toward the bench. Sit down, Trump said. Tell me about it. Not in anger, not in sound bites. Just tell me. And so, as the afternoon waned, Michael spoke. He told Trump about his factory job that had been outsourced, the part-time work that barely covered expenses, the nights he spent awake worrying about his kids' futures. Trump listened, interrupting only to ask questions, his usual bravado tempered by a quiet attentiveness. When Michael finished, there was a long pause. You're right about one thing, Trump finally said. The system isn't perfect, and maybe I haven't done enough to fix it, but you're wrong if you think I don't care. Michael folded his arms. So what now? You're just gonna say you'll look into it and walk away? Trump smirked faintly. Not my style, but you'll see. Before Michael could respond, Trump turned and walked away, his Secret Service detail following close behind. The next week, Michael received a letter. Inside was an invitation to the White House. Along with it, a detailed proposal for a new initiative aimed at supporting displaced workers and their families. It wasn't a handout, but a lifeline, a program designed to give people like Michael the tools to rebuild. The letter ended simply, actions speak louder than words. See you soon? Michael set the letter down, his mind racing. For the first time in years, hope flickered, fragile but real. And in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the image of Trump walking away that day, his words hanging in the spring air. You're meeting one now.